can you talk about the what we want to be aware of, or how? Because I'm still trying to grasp the idea of channeling energy, and you doing it.
Yeah, I can see you completely don't grasp it. Because when I try to do it with you, you just go. You don't do it. It's like you try to do it physically, but you don't do it energetically. You kind of just go out like this. So if you got a, if you're trying to channel water, what do you need?
Pipe or a hose.
And what is a pipe or a hose? It's a conduit, right?
Conduit.
Okay, and the conduit represents what? Tension.
Yeah.
Tension. You need the tension in the conduit to channel the water, the electricity, whatever you're. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see that the water and electricity, like say, take riverbanks would be a conduit for the water. The riverbanks are very still and slow moving and changing over time. They change over time, right? Mm-hmm. The water is changing constantly, moment to moment. And together they create a polarity, an opposite. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So do the riverbanks shape the water, or does the water shape the riverbanks?
The water shapes the riverbanks.
They shape each other. If there was no riverbanks, what would the water do?
Yeah, that's true.
And if there was no water, the riverbanks wouldn't change as much. The water changes, so they change each other. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So the water is the feminine, the riverbanks are the masculine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the riverbanks are the structure, but then the feminine changes the masculine over time, and the masculine guides the feminine, and they work together. The water is dynamic. It's ever changing from moment to moment. It can be raging, it can be calm, it can be soft, it can be soothing, it can be cold, it can be hot. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, so when you go to channel energy, you need to be, you're channeling, all this energy flows through you, and you need a conduit. When you look at me, when we're doing the channeling of a connection, and you need that conduit, you don't make a conduit, you go like this even more. You try to, I watch you, but you're not quite getting it yet. Does that make sense to you guys? So if I'm saying something to one of you, I could just be talking in general and just up here, blah, 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 or I could look at somebody and actually be more, or the audience kind of tighten in. I could be more wide. And you can consciously do this and feel it change. You can actually look into somebody and they can feel you look into them. And so when I speak, I'm speaking into him. And that's that penetrating kind of energy when you speak to somebody, like a really powerful speaker speaks and you're like, whoa. Like when Martin Luther King gave his famous speech, I Got a Dream, right? Very powerful. Same with an actor, a great actor. It's just, there's all this energy he's giving to the audience, and he might be up here, or she might be up here being really forward with another actor, or might be being really big, or might turn and speak to the whole audience, and they have to be able to adjust that energy. But we do the same thing when we talk. Dynamic people are always doing that. They're adjusting and channeling the right amount of energy for the right amount of moment. When you go up and say hi to somebody and it's really noisy and loud, and you're competing with noise and lights and alcohol, say you're at a bar, you got to come with a certain type of energy, probably a lot more powerful, a lot more penetrating than if you're at a library. A library, you got to calm and you got to feel that difference. You don't just know it analytically, you feel the difference and you adjust to the moment. Otherwise, let's say somebody's in a library and you come here, you just walked out of a bar, you're talking with your friends, and you walk into a bookstore or whatever, and you start speaking to somebody and they're down here, it's going to be such a mismatch of energy that it's going to push back. Does that make sense? And so everything is a dance. So if you're talking to somebody and you're moving something in a certain direction, a conversation, a sales situation, a seduction, right? And you're dancing together. You're dancing and moving that energy together. The riverbanks are affecting the water as much as the water is affecting the riverbanks. It's not just one person seducing another. It's one person seducing another while the other person's seducing on the other. And there's a dance that goes on in that, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So it's that channeling that's important. And so as I look into you right now, do you feel the difference? And I speak to you. Can you feel me narrow in, guys, when I do that? And it changes the dynamic of the talk. Now, for me to do that, I've got to be able to feel my back. I've got to be able to feel my legs. I can't, if I come out of my body to do that, and I start putting all my energy on him, and I forget about my legs and my back, and I see you guys do this all the time, and I'm trying to make a point, how does it start to feel? You feel me trying to get to you? Like, because I'm not maintaining my space first. It's got to be me grounding me first, my body, and then connecting to somebody else without losing this. So as much as I go down here, I connect here. And I channel here. And you can channel different. And when you can do that, in positive psychology, they call it positive inception. The ability to channel emotional states to other people. So when you can do that, you can create that conduit, you can create that bridge, you can create that sense of connection, then you can start channeling different emotions, feelings. I can channel curiosity. I can get really curious about somebody. I can channel appreciation and start allowing myself to appreciate more. And I can channel turn on and let somebody know I like them and they can feel the turn on. You know, I can just enjoy somebody. You ever been on a date and you're looking at a girl and you're really appreciating her and you're just really enjoying that tension in the moment and you're just looking at her and feeling that appreciation or that turn on or that curiosity, and she gets a little giggly and says, what? You know, who's had that experience? You know? But she's kind of, she knows she's enjoying it. She's like, what? Why? Because I'm bringing that tension, and then she's dancing off of it like the water, and we're creating polarity, which then creates the attraction. She knows what's going on. Okay? And she either chooses to dance or not. Who's ever noticed when a girl doesn't want to dance? What does she do? What does she do? You come up, you start flirting, you start bringing the tension, she doesn't want to dance. Maybe she likes you, but she's got a boyfriend. What does she do?
Turns away.
She could turn away. Sometimes they'll flirt for a second because they enjoy it, and then they realize they got a boyfriend. They start thinking about the boyfriend, and they run away, right? Sometimes they turn right away. I've seen girls be like that too, to just shut you down because, yeah, I'm not available is what they're saying. It doesn't mean they don't appreciate it. Everybody likes to feel attractive. Now, what's the opposite of that though? I'm not grounding in my body. I start bringing that tension. I start enjoying, but I'm doing it from this place of, because when I'm not in my body, I'm not grounding, I don't have a sense of self, and I start doing that. What happens is there's a sense of want and desire that gets overwhelming. Like, I really want you, I want you, I want you, you know, and then they feel that. And the feeling of that causes them to what? Now it feels creepy, it feels weird. It's a different energy. Who's had that experience? Raise your hand. Anybody ever been creepy in the room before?
Worst feeling in the world.
I said, any girls ever been creepy before? Come on, ladies, I know you've been creepy sometime in your life. Usually, every girl, if I talk to every girl, they eventually admit it. I remember that time I was really creepy, and because it happens. If you're not creepy or weird at some time in your life, you're not living life. You're not going out and trying new things. You're not learning. We're all going to make mistakes, right? If you do it all perfect, you will be boring. And so you got to experiment with this stuff, the changing and the playing with the energy and the transmitting of energy and the moving. And that's what we're literally doing when we're communicating. We're trading emotions back and forth. It could even be a sad emotion. It might be a sad emotion that's beautiful while you're talking about a sad movie or a sad experience where you learn something. And who's had the experience of sadness being beautiful? Loneliness being beautiful? Who's ever read a book where there's a lonely or a sad story and you were just completely into it, and at the end you're like, that's such a good book, that's such a good movie. So we want the whole gamut too. We're not just saying, I just want to be happy all the time. Matter of fact, you can be happy in the sadness. You can be happy in the loneliness. You experience loneliness, but overall you're happy. But if you're afraid of loneliness, you're afraid of sadness, you won't ever be able to be fully happy, because every time you experience it, you'll get lost in it. So again, it goes back to understanding the play and the dance of energy. So the channeling, as you asked. There's the majority of the communication happens before the words or under the words, through tonal inflection, through transference of energy, through transference of emotion. Then you put the words on top. And it's great if you can do a lot of poetic words, but the poetic words don't work unless the emotions match the poetic words. You ever see those smooth talkers? They like really can speak with like Zan Perrion's a great speaker. He loves words. You read his book. Who's read his book? The Alabaster Girl. You see how seductive that book is? You guys all notice that? It's a very powerful teaching on the feeling of being that seductive. And it's a neat book because the words are powerful, but the feeling's in there too. He's conveying the feeling of everything over and over and over again. And if you don't have that feeling, the words die. Who's read really good words that are dead? Or who's heard a reader read really good words that are dead? I got this book on tape. It was a really good book on tape, and I listened to it years ago in my car, and it was a awesome book that I enjoyed a lot, called Snowboarding in Nirvana. And it made me really want to go snowboard the Himalayas. It's a story of this guy that went to snowboard the Himalayas, and he finds a spiritual teacher that happens to be up in the Himalayas while he's snowboarding, and he was hiking different mountains and snowboarding them. And the interesting thing is I really enjoyed it. And then I got another copy of it, different reader, and I couldn't even listen to the first chapter. Same words. I couldn't stand the book. And I realized the power of the reader, the power of the actor in a movie, or the way they're directed. It's all because all that's the subcommunication that goes on underneath, how you channel the energy. And that's what you guys are learning this week. Okay, guys? Any questions about any of that?
So how does that relate to being present? Is it the same thing, like channeling that energy?
All of it.
The same as being very...
The way I look at presence, and I'm going to say somebody else might look at it differently, is I say there's groundedness and there's feeling. Some people are more grounded, can be fairly grounded, but he wasn't bringing much feeling. So he was being, when he came in here, he was like this grounded rock, right? Jake can be very grounded, but he wasn't bringing a lot of feeling. Then the feeling is the heart. It's big heart energy. You came in with a lot of heart, a lot of feeling energy, but you weren't grounding, okay? So you were just all over the place with your energy. You'll see this with New Age spiritual guys that have been studying opening their heart with heart meditations in their little yoga, in their little metaphysical communities, and they're all peace and love all the time. We get this a lot in LA, guys. I don't know if you get it here. And they're all like, oh, but they have no, they're not sexually attractive, right? You've seen those guys. You've all seen them. They're not sexually attracted to women. And but women love hanging around with them. They listen well, they connect well, because they're not bringing that grounded energy. Now, if you bring a lot of grounded energy and no heart, you might not feel safe. You might feel a little like, is he safe? I can't feel his humanity. You need both. And in today's modern world, at least in California and a lot of the United States, you'll see that a lot of people are working on that connected energy. Like, I want to be compassionate with you, but they don't want to bring the tough energy. Here's the truth of what you need to hear. Wake up. And saying it without attacking. And you'll notice the people that bring the heart energy, whether they bring this big heart, they say a lot of stuff. When they get mad, it's usually some social justice situation or something like that. And then they attack. They lose complete control because they're not grounded. You guys notice that? So there's a difference between giving stern, solid feedback, really hitting somebody. And then also there's a difference between that and giving, attacking somebody and losing control. And so the presence is the two together. It's the ability to bring those two. Once you can bring those two, then you can start controlling the flow of, channeling, creating that conduit we talked about earlier. Channeling an emotion, channeling connection. Is this kind of bringing everything together a little bit? Okay. Anything else? So together, I say groundedness and connection equal presence, the level of presence, right? And it increases and increases and increases. I wanted to say this. A big part of your presence is stored up in your sexuality, sexual energy. A lot of people today have a lot of sexual shame. Think sex is bad. Talk about sex is bad. And sex is not bad. It's a beautiful thing. It's how you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for sex, right? We wouldn't get new life if it wasn't for sex. Sex is a beautiful thing. It can be a celebration of two people to being together. And so being ashamed of sex and sexuality is a huge piece of your shadow material that ties up a lot of your power. As you break that up and you start to make sex normal and okay and healthy, which it is, it has a lot of great health benefits to the body. You practice safe sex, you use your intelligence, you have sex with people with good energy, if you want to be with a girlfriend, find a girl that you really connect with. And in that sense, that sacred bond, or the sacred, treating that energy in a healthy way, it's amazingly good for you. But human beings, not just men and women that aren't ashamed of sex, don't have a problem talking about sex, don't have a problem saying they enjoy sex, that sex is beautiful. But you bring up sex to somebody, you say, so what do you like sexually, to somebody that's got sexual shame, and they tweak in all different ways. There's a place and a setting for it, of course, but it shouldn't be a big deal if the place and setting is right. But most people can't do it. Could any of you guys talk to your partner, a partner, anybody you're being intimate with, about sex openly, easily? Can you talk about how often you masturbate? If they caught you masturbating, how would you feel? Would you feel ashamed? Would you feel embarrassed? See, usually those two topics right there tell you a lot. Could you tell your partner exactly what you like sexually and want to do, and your fantasies, what you've done in the past, without shame? And the other way around too, because there's a lot of power locked up in sex. Could you invite your partner to share her experiences without shaming her? If she says something crazy that she has a fantasy about, are you going to freak out and get weird? Or are you going to just let her fantasy be her fantasy and appreciate it? Doesn't mean you're going to do it, doesn't mean you're not going to do it. But let it be her fantasy and don't make her feel wrong for it, right? Do you have a sense of, do you project that women shouldn't want to be as sexual as men? Do you try to put women in a box sexually? That if they have sex right away, they're bad people? If they want to have sex with a man and they haven't waited 3 dates, are they bad? Again, why would you do that if you don't want that on you? You got to set women free, make them feel safe. You got to make yourself feel safe. And let all that go. Okay? And that'll change a lot of your life. If I walk up at a loud nightclub where the music's just thumping, and I start yelling and screaming, or I talk quietly, it's going to feel like you're going to feel too quiet, too subdued, and people are going to walk away from you immediately. Pulling.
And you need this because you're lacking it. This, and the other.
What is a hard sell? I mean, you just said it.
There are people that do it. There are people that can kind of.
We do a little bit of. Dave does a little bit of a hard sell, and I've done it, but